you're not so surprised at how this thing has started to go. You said early in the process that he cannot and will not or should not play a game in Philadelphia again. So, is this the end of Ben Simmons? Are you surprised at how this has gone at all?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not, based on the Sixers didn't do what they should have done over the summer, which was move him. And look, even before Ben Simmons started to get his feathers ruffled and make it clear that he didn't want to come back and make it known, even before that, just based on the way the season ended and that just epic down on his part in that series, the Sixers should have known that this was going to be a very difficult situation moving forward with him, because he has an issue with his confidence that he's not going to be able to address, and that he has chosen not to address. And actually, he sort of denies that it even exists. So if you're the Sixers and you're going forward and this is your primary ball handler and he's got these kinds of issues, you aren't breaking through with him as a co-star with Joel Embiid. You're just not. And the Sixers should have known that, because he was exposed to the entire league and certainly to the coaching staff, his teammates, the media, the fan base in Philadelphia. They should have known it before he even got to the point where he started to make it clear, I don't want to play there, before they flew out there, met with him, told him in the face, that's great, thanks for coming out, I don't want to play there anymore. And it's almost like they were in denial about the entire thing. So the fact that it's gotten, you're right up to training camp, and he's still part of the team and now doesn't want to report the whole bit, I'm not surprised, because the Sixers didn't address this to Mike, and now a very ugly, nasty situation, and this isn't going to end well, I don't think, for Philadelphia any way you slice it, because there's only three options. Force him to play by squeezing him financially, and I don't know why you'd want a guy to come in that's only there for the money and to stop the bleeding financially, and his mind is not in it. He's not pulling in the right direction with the rest of the guys in that locker room. He's lost the respect of that locker room. So I don't know why that's even an option. Option two, you pay him to stay away, or you just keep suspending him if his mind's not right. That's not a great option, because now you're down an all-star caliber player and you didn't replace him with anything. So option three is move him. And now I think it's a little bit more difficult to move him, and you might not get back even what you could have in the summer. So the Sixers, to me, botched this entire thing by allowing this to butt up. And now it's permeating the actual start of the season. I put it at the feet of the Sixers.
Right. He obviously, there was a time, I guess, he called Harris and Morey and Rivers out there and just said, look, I appreciate it. I don't want to be him. You're saying at that point is when the Sixers need to reevaluate their stance and say, look, we tried. He doesn't want to be here. Let's see what we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's almost as if they just weren't either taking it seriously, or I think they overvalued him in the market. I really do. Look, I'm not saying he doesn't have value. He does a lot of great things on a court. He's an elite defender. He's a great playmaker. He's got size that can guard so many different positions. He does things. He's got value, but he's got this glaring offensive issue that the rest of the league sees too. So there are places he can go, Mike, where maybe you've got things in place with your guards, that you've got threats at the guard position, you've got your primary ball handlers in place, you slide him to a 4 spot, and you can protect his weaknesses because of your other personnel. There are teams like that in the league. So I'm not saying he doesn't have value. I'm just saying I think what the Sixers wanted back for him was too much, and they weren't being realistic about it. So therefore, anytime a team is unrealistic about what they're asking, what they're really saying is, we don't want to trade this guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the Sixers did. And I just don't understand, based on his obvious glaring weakness that's never going to change. Based on that, and he then basically had a rift with Embiid. He didn't want to play for Doc. He doesn't want to play with Embiid. He's got a problem with the organization. He thinks he was thrown under the bus and wasn't protected. His feelings are hurt. Combine it with that glaring weakness, you got a situation that's not sustainable. It's not tenable. You can't just think that one day it's all going to be okay. And that's why I keep hearing this come out of them. Hey, no, we think, hey, today's today, but tomorrow's tomorrow. You never know. Guys, change your mind. Not now. Not now. You are past the red line in the sand, because now you have actually alienated your locker room. You have broken relationships with guys on that team. They do not respect. and they will not going forward unless he has a miraculous change of heart and he wants to show up and actually lead. But to do that, what he's going to have to do, he's got to sit down in a room face to face with all of these guys, one-on-one, particularly Embiid and Doc. And I just don't think Simmons has it in him to do it. And I don't think he wants to do it.
Right.
He doesn't want to be here.
Well, Tim, as you mentioned, like he says, I don't want to be here. Then it flips over to the Sixers that they've now held on too long. They've asked for too much. But the underlining problem is that Ben doesn't want to stare at himself in the mirror and admit that he's part of the issue as to how it got here, correct?
No, there's no question about that. He's in denial about that. You know, for him to say at the end of that series, I had a bad series. No, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between not playing well. And look, what does that mean for a guy like Ben Simmons? Not playing well for a guy like Ben Simmons means, listen, I still rebounded. I still made plays. I still guarded everybody on the court because those things should never change. That means for a guy like him, man, I shot terrible this series, but I was still myself.
Right.
No, that's not what we watched, Ben. We watched a guy that was terrified of the moment. He was paralyzed with fear of failure. There's no question that that's what we were looking at. So this is the one I'll give the Sixers a break on. That is bad luck. You ended up with a superstar talent that has screwed up wiring between his ears, and he's got – that's bad luck. That really is. But the rest of it, the way it was handled – and look, I'm not saying Ben Simmons had a right to let everybody down the way that he did and then flip it and say, I want out. Like, wait a second, you failed us the way you played. We lost that series in large part because of your weaknesses. And now you're flipping it around that somehow we have betrayed you and you want out. Look, there's no question. That's a terrible approach, and that's a weird mindset. But what I'm saying is, from the time he made it clear he didn't want to come back, combined this obvious issue that your team is not going to be able to overcome if he's your point guard, the combination of the two said, get rid of him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying you dump them off for a case of Gatorade and a box of athletic tape. What I'm saying is there had to be deals on the table. There had to be deals on the table that we'll get back commensurate value. But I just think the Sixers' idea of commensurate value is probably different than mine and different maybe than a lot of people in the league that are pushing the button for these other organizations.
Well, and how much now? I mean, obviously you said, look, the Sixers, they held on. They made a mistake. Now, how much, though, is the unprofessional nature of how he's handling this now factoring into trying to do something with him?
Well, I honestly don't think that much, if you want to know the truth. Because here's what his track record point hasn't indicated this is who he is. Like this is coming off like a petulant child that's a problem from a character standpoint in your locker room. And I think it's defined to this moment. I don't think this is necessarily Ben Simmons is going to be going forward. And I don't think the rest of the league sees him as a guy that's now going to be a chronic headache for an organization. I think teams around the league are probably looking at him and they're saying, this guy needs to change his scenery bad. That's the worst of the 30 NBA teams to exhibit fear. Philadelphia is the last place that you can show that to, and he did it. And they might give him the benefit of the doubt if he goes out and gets a triple-double at the start of the following season and he looks like himself. But guess what? The first time it rears its head again, they will never forget it, and they'll never get over it.
Yeah.
And the next time it happens, Mike, they're going to start in, going to be unrelenting. It's never really going to stop. And so the Philly should have been aware of the market is not going to allow him to have success there. And I actually think Ben Simmons knew it as soon as the series was over. I can't run out back onto that tunnel at Wells Fargo based on what they just watched. And that was before.
Yeah, like that to me, that is the number one, if only reason he doesn't want back is he knows he cannot face these fans. He absolutely knows that Thunderdome is coming and he doesn't want to face it. That to me Because everything else sounds frivolous. What Doc said, what Joel said, I can't play with him.
Completely. I'm so saying this because I said it today earlier on the air at different hits I was doing, and I thought, I was like the only one at our network having that take because I'm like, you're missing the point. That to me is an excuse. What Doc Rivers said, what Joel Embiid said, is an excuse for him to lay it at their feet. The truth is, when he left the damn arena that night, he knew in his mind, I can't play here anymore because that they will never let him live it down. It was the most mystifying thing we all had watched. Here's a dude with elite level athletic ability that if he ever figured this part out, and look, the shooting thing, we always chalk it up to mechanics, this, that, and the other. And look, and there's some truth to that, Mike, but the truth of the matter is the real crux of it is between his ears, and that requires a sports psychologist. It requires a lot of work to get yourself to you so you can let your muscle memory take over and not block it with negative thoughts or fearful thoughts in a moment of stress, because that's what he does. And he laid it bare in a series against the Atlanta Hawks when they're the number one seed and they have a chance to go to the conference finals. It was a disaster for him the entire series. And he knew that night when he left the arena, there's no possible way I could play here again. And then that other stuff that happened, that's just a way to frame it for him and his camp. Oh, his feelings were hurt. They didn't protect him. They didn't have his back. This, that, and the other. No, he knows the actual reason is because the next time I run out of that tunnel at Wells Fargo, and the first time I miss 2 free throws or I don't go up strong around the rim because I'm afraid of getting fouled, they're going to start. He saw what happened to Markelle Fultz. He saw that. He saw us live through that. That crowd got to the point with Markelle, even if he made a good play, they gave him a mocking ovation. I was there many nights to see it. And Ben Simmons saw that, and he knows what this city's going to be like when they sense that. And so he had to get out. And the Sixers should have been smart enough to understand that. And I don't know what this game they played to try to flush him back to team and force him back. I don't understand what Daryl Morey's long-term plan is here in terms of moving him because it's obvious he can't play here.
I agree with that 100%. I 1,000% agree, 100%, 1,000% that he flat out, it doesn't have anything to do with anything other than he knows he cannot face those fans. Tim Legler, ESPN, all day, they've been discussing this. You know why? Because this thing is a circus, and who knows when it's going to end. Ben Simmons has 4 years left on the deal. We'll see if he ends up playing it all for Philadelphia. Tim, we'll catch up with you soon, man.
Yeah, Mike, you got it, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Tim Legler, ESPN, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.